Con Stathopoulos and Josh Phegan come together in an incredible podcast, Grow, Scale, Master.
An energetic approach to drive progress, master skills, build strengths and put the strategy back into rapid business and personal success.
Backed by real-world experience in rapid scaling to playing the long-term game of business, it's the story of all the lessons learned on the journey to mastery.
Be inspired, renew your energy and chase the future with Grow, Scale, Master.
Con, today's the big conversation for a lot of business owners. Profit is not an option.
I love that heading. It's not an option.
It's not an option. No. This is an absolute requirement. So one of the things I think is really important is that, like, you know, it takes markets like these for people to really understand, you know, how their businesses actually work and getting some of the basic financial principles in place. So I got a couple of little things and that I think are interesting. And one of the ones was about, like, really understanding what your break-even point is. And so what is a break-even point? This is like my old accounting days coming out. But the basic idea that revenue is exactly the same as expenses. So if you can get to that break-even point, every dollar after that is then arguably profit.
Yep.
Now, why this is a really important foundational idea is that that's how we were taught to do break-even. But the way that we now do break-even is we say, well, what does it actually cost to run the business?
Yes.
So what are all of your expenses?
Yes.
And then on top of that, add 20%. So you actually have a guaranteed 20% profit line.
Yep.
And so that now becomes the new break-even point. And so let's say, for example, that you go, okay, great, my total expenses to run my business is $1 million as an example. I'm now going to say that literally I'm going to add 20% to that. So it's now going to be $1.2 million is cost. And so then what I'm going to say is I'm going to divide that by 10 months of the year. So I now need to get a minimum of $120,000 in revenue per month for 10 months a year.
Yep.
And the benefit of that is that if I get any revenue on the 11th and 12th month, that's like pure profit, unexpected, out of the books, you know, in order to be able to go to get the growth. So we take the annualized cost base, call that $1 million, we divide that by 10, so that then we're in a position that we think that our costs are $100,000 a month. And that gives us 2 months where there'll be no expenses, and that's actually okay. But it's a really nice way to kind of get yourself engineered to know that you've got a minimum profit amount. And I think a little bit about it, like you go to put money in the bank, you get 5%, go to a good ETF, maybe 8 or 9%.
Yep.
At maybe 15, you're starting to earn a little bit extra for your energy and effort. And at 20, you've got probably a pretty good business. Now, there are some businesses which are solo operators, which can run at 40 and 50% margin. But the problem with those businesses is they can't scale.
Correct. And they can't get any time. I think the thing is with this, though, is why does it take markets like this to work out what your break-even is?
I think because it changes.
I know it does.
And what I mean by that is that, like, maybe in the era where money is fast, you spend money fast. And so all of a sudden, we'll get that extra subscription or we'll do that extra thing.
Yes.
And then also, too, technology is changing. So the cost of that, and now all of a sudden you used to have signing technology, but now it's included in your CRM, or now you needed this, but now you don't. And I think that, like, you really get back to the core. And so I'm always a big one that you're never going to cost cut your way to greatness.
No.
But you can definitely reallocate where you spend your
100%. Absolutely. And I think you're right. I think markets like these or market conditions give a lot more greater visibility.
Yes.
Particularly if you've got a revenue problem or an expense problem.
Yes.
See, I've seen a lot of businesses over the last 3 to 6 months that have had unprofitable revenue growth.
Yes.
What's the point?
Yeah.
So you've gained more revenue, but it actually hasn't hit the bottom line.
And a good example of that is on the PM side, particularly when someone buys a property management business.
Spot on.
And maybe that particular one has got a portfolio that's not as in good a shape as yours. Maybe there's some lower management fees. They're not getting the ancillaries. So I just say that, you know, one of the first jobs of any business owner is to fix the fixed cost first.
Correct.
So how do I get to a point that my monthly or annual recurring revenue is higher than my monthly or annual recurring expenses? So then I've got an annual or a monthly recurring profit.
Yep.
And like when I first start out, I think that's if you're a cold startup, as you no doubt were when you were doing Parramatta, although you had a bit of revenue coming, is that how would you get to that point if the business was not already at that stage?
Yeah.
And that might be through really aggressive growth in your PM business, buying out a competitor to try to get to a minimum amount of profitability, and then paying down some debt, as a part of that. But like knowing when the good times are there, that's really about paying down the debt to get the business in a better shape so it can weather all storms, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think the thing is with a lot of businesses, we haven't really forecasted.
Yeah.
Because we're in sales, we're always optimistic about what's going to be next or what's ahead of us.
Super Saturday.
Yeah, correct. It's true. enterprise super sat are different. But we haven't really forecasted for, hey, when do we need cash reserves? Or what level of cash reserves should we have? Is that 2-3 months operating expenses? But I like what you said about fixing the fixed costs.
Yes.
The worst thing you can possibly do is have a surprise.
Yes.
A PAYG bill or something that comes in where you haven't forecasted for it or accrued for it.
Yeah.
And I think that this is, we're in August now.
Yeah.
So business planning should be well and truly have done for the financial year ahead.
Yes.
The review should have occurred for FY26.
Yeah.
It's not too late to do that review again. Where do you have a leaky bucket?
Yeah.
Travel and entertainment? Is it what you said earlier? Subscriptions, because, sometimes you've got all these subscriptions, but people aren't using it. The seats aren't being used, but it's $100 here per head.
Yeah.
It's $500 there. It's $1,000 there. Now, that might seem like we might be nickel and diming.
Yes.
But this, if you kind of replicate it throughout the entire part of the business, through every part of the business units, property management, sales, operations, marketing.
Yeah.
I mean, we spoke a couple of episodes ago about a business that we know, not in Australia, overseas, that went under because of their marketing fund, right?
Yeah, sure.
So I think that this is the time to be able to really take stock on what matters, right?
And so that's an interesting one about really knowing what your profit drivers are.
Yeah.
And so I know that sounds funny, but there are certain sections of your business which might have a much higher margin than others.
Correct.
And so this is the thing is that if you sat down with the property management team and BDM and said, what does it actually cost us to actually service a particular landlord? Do they actually know? And what does it cost us to service an out-of-area landlord as a part of that? And the problem is that, literally, are they always just thinking percentages, but the amount of time, energy, effort that goes into doing that, there's actually some work that you've got which is completely unprofitable.
Correct.
And so you got to work that out and I think this is kind of interesting, maybe sales reps might come to you and go, I want to argue about my percentage, but yet they don't have a minimum fee that they agree to charge in the lounge room.
Correct.
At least 80 to 90% of their listings.
Yeah.
Because I get it. You're going to do maybe a co-list, or maybe you're going to be in a position that you're going to, sell your mum's house or something like that. And those things might be a little differently. But on average, can we get to 80 to 90% of your listings to be at a minimum fee that's agreed? And anything that below that you would fund. And I think that's a bit, what do you mean? And so this is about really understanding that if I'm going to go to put in that you're going to be X numbers, then I want to make sure that X amount of revenue is still coming in.
Yeah, definitely.
And then the other conversation is then about where the margin drivers are. And, I've just done the tour, which has been amazing, to Dublin and to the UK, and then a bit of time in Dubai. And what you realise about Australia and New Zealand is that literally we did so well in the debundling of both marketing and fee.
Vendor paid advertising.
Vendor paid marketing.
Yep. Right.
But then that debundling is a thing, it's a bit like Jetstar. There's the flight price.
Oh,
but then
gotcha.
you take your bag, it's $300.
Yeah.
But we did that really, really well.
Did they not do that overseas?
No.
So the fee includes the marketing?
Yes. 1.5 all inclusive.
Oh, wow.
And so
is that industry norm or standard? Or
industry standard. So the basic idea is that whole era that Australia went through and New Zealand went through in the late 90s just didn't happen there.
Right.
And so which has made, some of the real estate websites the most profitable portals in the world because of the fee model that we're charging on a per property basis as opposed to an office basis.
Gotcha.
So the interesting conversation is about, well, now how do you go to drive margin? And I think that we're starting to see this when agents get desperate around wanting listings, they're starting to include a portion or
styling, or I'll take that off the top at the end, whatever. I'll pay that back. Yeah.
And what people don't realise, the impact of that margin.
Yeah, of course. It's a margin squeeze, right? And 100%.
And I love that the back when you were selling a cheaper property and maybe had a $15,000 fee on that as an example, and all of a sudden the owner's like, oh mate, we're $5,000 away from what the buyer's offer is and where I'm at. Can you just take the $5,000 off your fee? Well, no, because that 5 over 15 is actually equal to a 33% reduction in my total fee.
Versus your 1 or 2% or 5% or whatever it might be.
And so I think that as a business, it's about if you want to get into that profit mode, you got to engineer it. And what's your break glass moment to go, hey, we're in serious trouble. We're going to have to make some cuts.
We did that in March.
Yes.
So we did a forecast with our CFO where we worked out what is our worst case scenario.
Yes.
So worst case scenario isn't break even. Worst case scenario is we've got to tip in every single month.
Yeah.
And we have a formula. We know exactly what each office needs to do to break even.
Yeah.
Which what happens when we can start getting into profit. But more importantly, if the market was to come back by 30, 40, 50, 60, 70%, we absolutely know where we stand.
So it's interesting because I've got like this belief about like allocation of like dividends or profit, and about like, so when do we actually do a payout? When are we doing the pay down of debt? And ultimately then what do we do to set aside some cash for a rainy day account?
Yes.
And so I'm not saying that this is law, but in my brain, the way that I think about it, like if you have a month's worth of operating capital, like you're below your safety. If you got 3 months worth of operating capital, you're probably feeling a bit more comfortable. If you're in a position you got 12 months worth of operating capital, like you are seriously entrepreneurial and you could buy out a competitor.
Yep.
And I think that this is the challenge, is that, when it's kind of like there's a right, but last year I got X as a dividend, I should get X as a dividend this year. but it actually doesn't work that way.
It does not. I wish it worked that way, mate.
But that's because I've got a debt structure, or I've got a life structure tied up around this level of income, that I get my $100,000 a year from the business as a dividend, and I earn my $100,000 a year.
Josh, this is exactly like what we're talking with buyers that bought over the last 4 or 5 years. They borrowed at the cheapest possible cash rate, leveraged themselves, and now interest rates have gone up, market shifted. They're funding it, the funding of the monthly repayments don't add up. It's exactly the same in a real estate business.
Yeah.
At what point do we start, thinking about this as more of a business, not as a cash register where we can just take when things are going really well?
And I think that you got to sit down and explain that to people, to say, hey, like this is what we're doing in terms of our capital allocation or dividend allocation, and so that you can actually go to see that the value of the business is going
actually
up,
increases,
down the debt on the property management asset.
Yeah.
And I think that, Phil Harris spoke about that, once, where he said, I didn't feel that well off until later on I actually had to look and realize that I'd paid down so much debt
that I had an asset.
Yeah.
Correct.
And that was the problem, that he was only ever looking about what was in the bank account, and he didn't feel well enough to go and buy a new car, as an example.
But that story, whether you're a principal or you're an agent, is exactly the same. So, when we've got great market conditions is when you start seeing fancy cars and watches and suits and, European holidays and whatnot, which, by the way, if you can afford it and you've earned it, you should enjoy it.
Yeah.
But this is a business.
Yeah.
We need to operate it as a business. So the market is not always going to be up.
Yeah.
I mean, we might have the next 10 or 15 years in New South Wales or in Australia as, a
relatively flat, stable market.
That's exactly right. So what do you do then? You're going to have to adjust the way that you spend or the way that you live.
Yeah.
Let's not put ourselves into a position where it's hard to live, or our life, I guess the choices that we make around our lifestyle get heavily impacted by market conditions.
And I think that like that whole idea is, just don't get too carried away. And when a market's going really well, understand that. But
squirrel it away.
You got to know.
Mm.
But I don't think that's exactly on the Instagram account. It's not a sexy thing to go, hey, so what are you doing this weekend? You want to save something? As a part of that conversation.
Experiences that rapidly shaped you.
That 3, 5, and 10x thing was, I've had that in the blueprint almost since day one.
You have.
And I was like, I learned, in the very minimal days, it's like, oh, okay, great. So, if it's going to cost me $1,000, in order for me to pay for my room, to rent a room and stuff in Sydney when I was first starting 20 years ago, okay, great. And then I kind of worked it out. I was like, okay, if I just have 3 times that in my bank account for the month, that's going to be pretty good. And then like only 5 times, like 10 times, mate, we're walking tall. And so then I started to learn that like, as life and debt structures and life infrastructure, changes in terms of your requirements, those numbers continually change. And I think that for anyone who's ever saved a deposit for a house, you feel so wealthy the day before.
And then so poor when you hit transfer.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you're like, oh man, but then you don't realize you've actually bought an asset.
Correct.
Leveraging.
I think just on that, the thing that's rapidly shaping me at the moment is exactly the same. Is we do a financial year budget post-mortem on, the last financial year. We're forecasting, looking ahead, what's happening. We're looking at all parts of the business. When was the last time we actually did that with ourselves and our own financials? So, and I think Phil spoke about this on one of your podcasts a long time ago, was the budget that you set with yourself.
Yes.
So have you done a net, a balance sheet and a profit and loss on your actual self?
Yes.
What does it cost for Josh to live? It's very expensive. What does it cost for you to live every single month? But more importantly, what is your net position?
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think we have enough visibility on that. I think we're too much in the now, not so much, in the future.
Something that's changing your view.
I was thinking about the speed and volume of work. And I'm going to say to you, like however much time I can give to the work, it's amazing the work can fulfill the time.
Yeah.
And I just think that literally the more that technology turns up, and I was listening to a podcast on AI the other day, and I thought it was kind of interesting. Everyone's faster, but no one's richer.
Yep.
And so
more work is being created, so less jobs are going to AI.
Yes.
The AI is creating more. I mean, we're seeing that in property management, right?
Yeah.
So we get an email or a correspondence from a tenant in particular.
Yeah.
It's written by ChatGPT. It references the Act. Now our staff have to do so much more work. Not that they're not opposed to it, but just the complexities with it.
Yeah.
I think one thing that's changing my view is, I've spoken about this before, I'm sure, definitely you and I have.
Yeah.
That interview that Matthew McConaughey did with Nick Kyrgios.
Oh, yeah. You're still playing that.
I watched it again this morning at 3:43 a.m.
Okay.
My brand new baby girl, Alexandra, was up. And so, I fed her and put her down, and then I was awake. When do we fall back in love?
Yes.
With the basics. When do we fall back in love with mastering the mundane, the routine?
Yeah.
I think this next period in New South Wales and in Australian real estate is really going to reward those that follow process, keep it very simple, but are absolutely executors when it matters. And what I mean by matters, all the basic stuff.
Yeah.